Today we are going to make a flower pen. For today's craft, we are going to need scissors and colored paper, preferably one of those is green, glue, a cotton swab, a pen, and we want the kind with the removable top, like that, and green masking tape or floral tape if you have it. For the flower part, you want to pick whatever color you want your petals to be, and we need this piece to be a square. So if yours is just an 8.5 by 11 piece like mine is, if you fold very precisely across and then cut off this rectangle at the bottom, you will have your square. Now once you have your big square, believe it or not, we want 4 smaller squares. So just folding it in half and then in half again and cutting along those lines, and you'll have your 4 squares. Now, if you worried about those folds from previous steps, you shouldn't, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to fold it again. We're going to do this with each of our 4 little squares. We're going to fold in half once, fold in half again, and then fold on the diagonal. So once you have this piece with the opening side on top, you are going to cut a rounded shape. This is going to be your petals. It'll all make sense in the end. Now that you have your 4 squares folded into this shape, there's one last step. We want to snip off just a tiny bit of the tip at the bottom of each. When you pick up your grab-and-go craft kit from the Machacek or Schlafly locations, you'll find that we've already got you to this step. So the first thing you'll want to do is snip off a tiny bit of the end, tiny bit of the tip of each of your 4 pieces of paper. Through the magic of video editing, now we've unfolded our pieces of paper that we've snipped the tip off of, and you'll see we have 4 flower shapes with a hole in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out and remove 1 petal from this. We don't need it anymore. 2 petals from this. We don't need them anymore. 3 from this, and let's keep it. And then 4 from this one, and that one we also don't need. Now we're going to begin shaping our flower petals. So we're going to take your largest piece, the one we only cut 1 petal out of, and we are going to use some glue. It can be white glue, clear glue, glue stick, whatever you have handy. We are going to smear some of this glue on one of the outer petals, like so, and then take the other outer petal and place it on top and pinch that together. And we are going to do the same for most of these other pieces except the smallest one. Now before we go on to working with our last smallest piece, what we want to do is we want to give these flower shapes a bit of a curl. Using a pencil or anything that's sort of round, you're just going to lightly roll the edges of the paper. And I promise it'll look better when it's all put together. Now that we have curled the edges of these other pieces, let's address this final one. What we're going to do is very similar to what we've already done, except we are going to be gluing and shaping the small piece around our cotton swab. Now that you have your smallest piece glued onto the cotton swab, and I will tell you, you may have to hold it in place for a while for the glue to stick, we are going to start with the next smallest piece, putting it on the Q-tip so that the small piece sort of nestles inside. And we're going to continue to do that with the others in order. Isn't that nice? All right, and you can certainly adjust the petals, curling them more or moving them around, whatever makes sense to you until you feel like it looks good. And if you do have a falling apart situation like I just had, you can certainly add a little bit of extra glue in between the layers. Now, to give our flower a little bit of green, we are going to do a little bit more cutting and folding. I'm sorry if you thought we were done. What we're going to do is start with about a 2 by 2 inch square, fold in half, fold in half again, and fold on the diagonal. So kind of like a very small version of what we already did. But instead of creating a petal shape, we want to create a leaf shape. So we're going to trim into a kind of a football shape. And then remember to snip off that little piece of the tip. Now I know me well enough to know shorter pieces of tape get less tangled on me. So I'm going to start at the top and try to get a little bit of that greenery under my tape, just for a little extra hold. And once that's wrapped around, I'm going to tear it off and start wrapping on a slight downward trajectory, adding additional tape as we go. Okay. Now I would encourage you to see if your cap still fits, because why do all this hard work to have your pen dry out? And it does. All right. So you have just made a very distinct flower pen. So this is a really beautiful flower pen that you can be proud of, to know that you made every part of it basically yourself. Now, if you happen to have any old fake flowers laying around, maybe something that fell off a wreath or broke off at some point in time and you don't even remember when, you can also use one of these. So if you don't have glue, but you have one of these, if you trim it down to size, put that inside your pen and wrap your green tape around it. It's the same idea. Request your grab-and-go craft kit through our curbside services, available at the Machacek and Schlafly location.